What's up, everybody? You're listening to a very sad edition of Cokie and Willie. I'm your commissioner, Bob Trollsby, and as always, joined by my co-host, the good chef Andre Napier, and Fireball Matt Marches. Dearly beloved, we gather here today to bid farewell to the 2023-24 Kansas State men's basketball season. As we reflect on the journey of this team, we are filled with a mixture of emotions, pride in the big wins, and sadness in the lows and losses. This season, the Wildcats at times displayed resilience and determination on the court. After coming up just short of a Final Four appearance last season, this team entered the year with the motto of All In, with an NCAA Final Four trophy as their logo, printed on t-shirts, worn at pressers in practice, and around the city of Manhattan. They captured 17 victories. They may have one or two more throughout the campaign, including 7 overtime wins, and included marquee wins against KU, Baylor, Villanova, and BYU. Losses to USC, Nebraska, and Oklahoma State minimized the lows of this team. Games riddled with turnovers, scoring droughts, and 4 timeouts. The lack of availability of Naquan Tomlin, who much of this team was built around Wes Glover at point guard, both forced other players into roles and situations they weren't prepared to necessarily have to do, and it cast a dark cloud on the season, regardless of the outcome of March, as they potentially embark on their next chapter in the NIT, which is more or less purgatory as opposed to heaven or hell. Let us celebrate the triumphs, learn from the challenges, and cherish the memories they forged for us on the hardwood. Let us raise our glasses and hold our heads up high as we put this season to bed and think about a brighter future, one with fewer turnovers, one where a university president doesn't put his hands in your pie, and one where David Castillo exists. Amen. Gentlemen.
That was beautiful. That was
wow.
What a sermon.
Wow.
It honestly, this season has been laid to rest, and I wouldn't have anybody else tell the story in a way that you just did. This season is going into the ground, and it will be laid to rest, knowing that they didn't try their best. But the season is over, and we can finally move on.
Wow. Were you voted most likely to go to seminary at Capon? Because that would have won.
I was not. I was voted most likely to run off and join a band, which I did later on. So that was accurate, pretty on the nose.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a sad day today for everybody.
And that's all I have on the outline. That's all I have on the outline for today's episode. Granted, we only have one person watching this live right now, but
oh my God.
Coming into tonight, we had all kind of agreed, okay, if we win Wednesday, we're going to do a regular show. If we lose Tuesday, that's going to be the funeral service. Like, we're all going to wear black. At least 2 of us are wearing black. And we're going to have a candlelit vigil for the season, because at this point, outside of winning the Big 12 tournament, there's not a whole lot that the Cats can do to make it.
No, it's, the season's, it is what it is. I mean, maybe you can go out on a bang. But the thing about it is,
no.
Okay, listen.
Not even going to get my hopes up.
No, not for hopes up. But I was going to say, even if you do win, realistically, only 30% of this roster is coming back. So, is it really progressing towards the future if you finish strong? I will say that I'm excited that it's potentially Ohio State and K-State matchup in the NIT. That will be fun. So I'm prepared for that. God, it's real dark over there in Matt's house.
There we go. There it is.
So, everybody like my hotel room? Looks great.
So I guess my first question is, with the season all but over at this point, how
Mhm.
would the two of you, I've given my eulogy. How would the two of you eulogize the 2023-24 season?
It just it just didn't start off right. It didn't start off right. You said it perfectly. You had a president putting his fingers in your pie. It just started off wrong. It started off with drama with the Naquan Tomlin stuff, getting, arrested or whatever the story may be, to, injuries. Quez Glover, we thought, we had him on the precipice of literally coming back that game. And then the day before, he re aggravates his injury for another season ender. That that sucks. We played shorthanded. Um, Man, we've went the roller coaster individually for players. You had Tyler Perry, who, I mean, I, did I sell my stock on Tyler Perry? Potentially, I mean, I might have. I said that we were sold a bill of goods that we weren't promised, and it didn't pan out. But realistically, he balled out of control towards the end, and it was the other guys that didn't help. And then Tyler Perry, Cam Carter, Kaluma with an absolute stinker in the biggest, let Tang tell you it's the biggest game of the year, and they absolutely laid duds. So this season was just, man. You had the hot start at the beginning of the the hot start at the beginning of the Big 12, 4-1, top of the 12, and then you lose you win three, and you go 3-10 since then. Not great. So
Pain in the ass. This team is such a pain in the ass. And I think the biggest disappointment is if you look at kind of the individual players and the expectation of what this season could have been. We probably had I know I did. I had a feeling this team was going to be really good at the beginning of the season because of the individual players, but also probably unfairly if you think about how good of a team we had last season. Um, but the way that the back half of the season has just shown a lot of disappointment and what feels like just the effort. It's the effort of um, from the players. Tyler Perry, we can bring up. I mean, there recently he's been one of our best players, and if you look at the entire season and kind of who you think is probably the best player on the team, it very well he may be at that level. But an absolute dud yesterday, which I expected. I felt anybody who had any positivity going into that game, I feel for you because you are drinking the purple Kool-Aid way, way, way too much. If you thought that that team was going to go on the road, especially against Kansas, yeah, you beat them, but we suck on the road terribly. And this team does not show up on the road. So I mean, we lost by what, 30 points? I mean, KU was favored by 12. I would have alternate spreaded that at like 20. I just knew. And it was because I don't believe in the players to be able to win a game like that on the road. It's very disappointing to just see kind of the end of the season and I mean, you beat Iowa State. That's not a given by any means, but you go 8-10. I mean, we had some games. You have games in that stretch where you're like, "What the hell? What are we doing?" I'm not necessarily saying that we're gonna win on Saturday because I think the vibes are just so down that if this team's going to come together and try and get a win like that, it's going to be kind of a heroic achievement. Um, so I mean, we just look ahead to next season. I'm excited for the Big 12 tournament, not for K-State. I'm excited to see kind of how the tournament goes this year, especially with 14 teams. I mean, maybe the NIT is in the balance. I don't know. But you can't not look at this and the year two kind of experiment with this transfer class did not go very well. And you took the year one experience where you had the entire class was a transfer class. And you kind of struck gold in some of those situations. But this season, I mean, just the fact of the matter is it is a disappointment. And maybe it's an unfair disappointment, but you can't cover it up at any means. This is just watching this team just has not developed together, and they have really not developed individually. I mean, you just see some regression with a lot of these players too. So just a very disappointing season all around.
So where was the turning point for you guys during this season? I mean, obviously you can go back to like when we were 4-1, and then obviously we lose a lot of games, but where's the turning point? Is it that Houston loss by 20 that we get absolutely smushed? Because that took a lot of the wind out of the sails. I mean, obviously we knew we were going to be crazy underdogs in that scenario, but we just were never the same team.
For me, I feel like it was when you lost your fourth straight to Oklahoma State at Oklahoma State, which was a bad Oklahoma State team. The 3 games before that were losses to top 25 teams, and slice it and dice it however you want. Oklahoma sucks now, but Oklahoma at that point in time was ranked 23rd in the country.
Yeah.
And that's coming off the heels of, you get shellacked against Houston. And that was coming off of the heels of an Iowa State game that was more or less one of the more competitive games you had all season against one of those top 25 teams on the road. That was one of the better road games you had until the last 3 minutes of the game when they just busted it wide open. But for me, it was more of a culmination. I don't know that there was necessarily a turning point, but there was a culmination with that Oklahoma State game of those 4 losses in a row where it's like Iowa State, you keep getting close, you then tie it up. You can't get the lead. You can't take the lead. And then Houston was just a piss poor, pathetic effort. But I think it's going to be piss poor and pathetic for anyone going into Houston for the most part this season. They look indomitable. And it was a culmination. Oklahoma State, if I were to pinpoint a specific game, it'd be that one for me, just because it was pathetic. It was pathetic to have to lose that game. And you turn around and beat KU, but then you rattle off 3 more losses right after that.
I would say the Oklahoma game at home. To go 9-9, the ultimate goal in Big 12 play was to go 9-9, and you win 9 of your home games. That'll get you there. And the effort in that game, I mean, we didn't score a point for the first 9 minutes of that game, 10 minutes of that game. It was coming off, obviously, that Houston game or the Houston game, which I don't put too much stock in the Houston game because I don't think a lot of teams are going to win there, especially on the road. And Houston's a team that can easily make the Final Four, win a national championship. But the effort that they put out there against Oklahoma, even though they came back in that second half and made it close, and then they just completely tanked after they got it close. And it just showed that, I mean, first off, this team is very hard to get in the groove from an offensive perspective. And then they just lose focus. And we saw that game. I mean, I feel like the Nebraska game, we saw a little bit of that, especially in the second half of losing focus. But Nebraska was shooting the ball well. Yeah, there were some things in there. But really the games this season has been this lack of ability to hold on to the basketball, and that's just comes from focus. So I think the Oklahoma game, I mean, that was a game that they were top 25 at the time, and you're coming off 2 straight losses on the road, and you expect to play an inspired effort at home, and you absolutely drop the rock. So I'm picking the Oklahoma game. That was the one.
I don't want to sound like the host of this show in no means, but like I'm literally at this point where I'm just asking questions because I don't have anything else to add because
Well,
it's kind of
what would you say your turning point was, Chef? Because you didn't answer.
I would have said the Houston game because I think you had a little bit of confidence. I mean, you lost to Iowa State on the road, but you thought that you were at that time we kind of thought Iowa State was frauds to some extent because they played such a weak non-con schedule and then they were going into that game, they were buzzing, but we thought we could get them. We were 4-1 at that point? No.
4-2.
4-2. We were 4-2 at that point. We thought we had a decent squad, and that was a road victory that was going to be a rock fight, and just so happens you just fall a little bit short. You couldn't put the ball in the hoop to get over the hump when it was tied so many times. But then Houston, because you haven't heard any stories about this team having infighting or anything like that. This team wasn't lost in terms of I mean, maybe their chemistry is kind of off, but I think that's just talent as players and coaching, and to be blunt. But that Houston game, because you had outside of Nebraska, you haven't been shellacked like that. And I think that took a lot of wind out of their sails, which you saw, like to Matt's point, you saw that effort going into the next game where their confidence was completely gone. They didn't make a shot for 10 minutes. I think that Houston game really took a lot out of them because I think it was a short turnaround going into that Oklahoma game. I think was that a Tuesday or a Monday? Might have been a Monday. I'm not sure, but was it Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Oh, well, that's even worse then. But Houston really took it to you, and you really had no chance in that game. And I think that's when we really first saw the the glimpse of how bad this team could be on offense in terms of scoring the ball, like moving it around, and the turnovers absolutely killing us. So not great. I think it was that. But my next question was going to be obviously next season is next season, but where do you go from here in terms of building a team? Do you I don't even know how to say this. Do you rely on the freshmen more? Is it all in on the freshman, this freshman going to be sophomore classes with a David Castillo coming in and then adding, experience to highlight them? Or is it another, hopefully you can find an Arthur Kaluma, Tyler Perry, all those kind of guys to carry the team and still have your sophomores and freshmen as reserves?
I mean, I do think there are blocks that you can build from. We've seen some flashes of some of these freshmen that do make you think, okay, they will have some type of puzzle piece in this whole deal moving forward. Um, it is concerning to me because I think of a guy like Cam Carter who admittingly, I mean, he was pushed into obviously more playing time this season because he has experience in the program and, is I think a junior. And he has moments where he has the capability to take over in games, but at, as a Celtics fan, he's kind of like Jaylen Brown because he just turns the ball over, and you're like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we making these types of plays? And he has to improve on that. I believe an off season where he's going to have to develop and not just being the guy like being a shooter, but he has to be a better team player with the ball. And so I see him developing in the off season. I wonder if a guy like David Gasson, I mean, I've had my moments with David Gasson this season, and I think it's because he doesn't play well with Will McNair. But that's not David Gasson's fault because in many games we've seen here recently, he's the most like energetic guy on the floor. He's making plays. He's a rebounding asset. I mean, he's an important guy on this team. So to rebuild, I think you have to look at a guy with a similar pattern like Arthur Kaluma. You need a kind of a wing to come in. I mean, I'm not saying that we need somebody a little bit different than Arthur Kaluma, but that's the position we're trying to look for, right? We need a guy who has the ability to stretch, make some threes, but also be athletic and getting inside, getting inside in the paint. I'm excited for some of the freshmen, though. I think RJ Jones, he'll get more time. He's shown that he has the capability to be a shooter on the outside. And if he I think his role is maybe like a 3-and-D guy if he improves on the defensive end, that's an asset for a team. And we see kind of these little flashes with Buddy Rich. I can see from an offensive perspective, he's not there. Like, he has to probably improve from just being able to be in an offense, but the athleticism is there. I'm
Buddy
like,
Rich.
I think he's just such an athletic freak that you want to get him out on the floor, but I can understand that he could also be a liability at some points too. So there's some pieces there, but the transfer portal is going to be like, they got to figure something out. They're going to have to bring some experience in.
So who on this current roster, knowing that there are going to be some guys who depart, because you're going to have Tyler Perry leave. You're definitely going to have Will McNair leave. Who knows with Kaluma? Kaluma probably calls it quits, right? He's more or less going to call it quits. He's going to go to the NBA. He explored that last year. And then David Gasson, does he have an extra year because he was a freshman in 2020? So
He does.
So if he comes back, I mean, Quez Glover, does he get a waiver and decide to play another year? Like,
see, this is the question that I'm asking, because how do you build this team? Because
and who do you try to get to go enter the portal to try to replace with potentially a better player?
I don't know if you have a lot of those players on here, because I mean, the things would be maybe obviously Taj Manning and Dorian Finney. Taj Mallory. That's me.
Call back to last week.
Yeah. Taj Manning and Dorian Finister. Those are the potential candidates for, inviting to the transfer portal. But I mean, I like what we saw from Dorian Finister in flashes this year. I think he's a two guard in the build of Cam Carter. Obviously not the scoring threat that Cam Carter is, but to your point of that Matt was making about Cam Carter coming back, you wanted him to be more of, obviously, less turnovers. You want that. And he is a green light bucket. That's what we kind of expected him to be this year. And Tang admitted it. That's what he wants him to just be a scorer. Do we want to put him in a box similar to what we did Tyler Perry this year, where he's basically out of position and forcing him to be a ball handler and out of the role of the scoring? And would that affect that would be a bad idea, right?
I'm not saying, like, David Castillo coming in, I think is going to have some unfair expectations because of who he is, from a ranking perspective. But I don't see a need for Cam Carter to come in and be a ball handler, because I think Day will improve in that regard. Right. Quez Glover is, if he does come back, is a ball handler.
Right.
And then you have David Castillo coming in, who knows? I mean, who knows what his role is going to be? We see impact freshmen come in at the point guard position and have a big effect on teams. And if he becomes really good at the start, then it's, how are we going to get Day on the floor? And how
many points? You're basically asking, how can you play 3 point guards?
Correct.
Because you have the Quez Glover, you have the David Castillo, who's going to come in with some momentum of, you have to provide for me now. Unfortunately for him, I mean, that's just what it is. And does Tang have it in him? Because his plan from the beginning of this season was to run a 5-out offense. And you can run 2 point guards with a 5-out offense. You just have to know what you're doing on defense, which is I mean, we even forgot about Jarrell Colbert. He's going to come back. I think he improved a lot over the season. He really showed me something because he started finishing
Especially
around the
defensive.
rim. Yeah, defensively as well. I think he's still a little foul happy, but you're going to get that with 7 foot, 200-pound guy. He's not strong enough to just stand there like Hunter Dickinson. For as much shit as I want to give him, if you're going to stand next to him, you're going to have to be strong as hell to move him because he's not going to jump and he's just going to stand there and make you shoot over him. So if Jarrell Colbert can somehow find a way to be that guy because he wants to block the ball into the 5th row every time, if he could just stand there and force guys to shoot over him, he'd be so much better. But, that just takes time and growth. So you have pieces on this team. Like I said, do you want to build around the freshman? Because I think if we do that, I think you're going to have another year of needing more growth. And it's not going to be a tournament team next year if you're building around these freshmen, in my opinion. And no offense to what Matt was saying, like trying to find another Arthur Kaluma, but we came off of an Elite 8, and this was the peak of, you should be able to recruit your ass off. And this is the team he built. So can he, coming off of a disappointing season, sell something to a transfer that you got something here where you can grow?
I mean, I think the counterpoint to that is you have an expectation that there are 2 other players that are going to be constructed on this team moving forward that did not play this season. That is that an excuse? You could put it that way. The thing that I struggle with is you would expect, though, that the team would show some type of improvement and development throughout Big 12 play. And that was not the case. I mean, at least from an offensive perspective, we were the same throughout all of Big 12 play. And so I mean, the other piece to it is, just like the football transfer portal this past season, the basketball transfer portal will be even crazier than it was last season. And there are going to be more players in the portal, number one, and there's going to be a lot of players outside of the Big 12 that you would have never expected would probably be in the transfer portal. And it does allow you to recreate your program in the short term. And so, I mean, we automatically know right now that Will McNair is gone, Tyler Perry is gone, Arthur's probably gone. I think it's 99% certainty he's gone. There's no way, unless some donors lining up the bag for him. So you've got at least 3 spots and then I would imagine there are at least a couple players that are going to be transferring off of this team. So
here's the other thing to take into account too. Tamont Lindsay got Naquan Tomlin scholarship, and he's gone. He's a 5th year, so that's an extra scholarship spot right there.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of had 2 spots already available to begin with. So you're, and that was to a credit to this team that we even did what we did shorthanded because we didn't fill out our roster. So
so I guess just to finish my point, like the rebuilding piece around these freshmen, I can't assume necessarily that we're going to be in a rebuilding phase next season because of the fact that freshmen this season didn't necessarily get a lot of time, other than, I mean, Day was starting these games, but you have the capability just to revamp your team so quickly. And it's all about finding the right pieces that allow that. And I mean, you look at the beginning of the season, you would have assumed that you have the right pieces in here. You have the right pieces in here that fit what you're trying to do. And because of these circumstances, that wasn't the case. So it was a miss. But next season, you just never know. So I'm excited about the transfer portal and what it could bring. I mean, maybe Patrick Ngongba. Maybe he's gonna decommit from Duke.
Heard rumors. There's rumors.
Maybe.
Really?
There's rumors. The streets are swirling about it.
Big Pat. We're gonna welcome him with open arms after
they keep
K-State taking sloppy seconds. I don't care.
leaving us at the altar.
They keep that sign on. Was it on the chef or was it on the movie theater that they had like "Welcome home, Pat" or something like that?
Dude, it was all over town. It was all over
the
town.
Rally House.
It was everywhere. Yeah. Oh my God. So I think the transfer portal conversation is a good conversation to have. At the time, I thought they did a great job. And we talked about this a little bit last week.
So did I.
You go out and you get two guys who were in the top 3 available at the time that they got them, in Tyler Perry, Arthur Kaluma. And the rest of the piece, I mean, Will McNair, Power 5 experience, came from Mississippi State, played in the SEC, right? You've got some other guys here, and it's just like Quez Glover. Yeah, he had some good experience as well, and it's just like, man, they built this team around Naquan Tomlin in a lot of ways with the 5 out and some of the complementary pieces that they got for him. And if you start the season without him, you go the entire season without him. Now he's putting up, 20 points a game at Memphis or something like that, and is still turning the ball over. So you don't solve that problem, certainly by having Naquan in the lineup. But some of the scoring woes, some of the scoring droughts that you have throughout games probably helps. It at least helps having a guy like that around, a guy who can play, a ton of minutes in a game too, knowing that Tyler Perry and Kaluma averaged, God, how many minutes per game did they average each? 35 and 36.
Yeah, Tyler Perry had to be top 5 in the league for sure.
Tyler Perry averaged 36.8 minutes. Cam was 35.7. Kaluma was 24.7. So it's just it's infuriating looking back on it. Like, it just sucks. There's no other way to slice it. The season just sucked. It was annoying, to use Matt's words. I guess thinking again, kind of back on the season, what was your favorite memory of this season?
Favorite. My favorite.
I mean, I was at the KU game, so ultimately that was a fun one. I mean, we don't have a lot of like exciting wins. So
it was about to be Cincinnati for me. I mean, when Tyler Perry hit that shot, I mean, we haven't talked about my experience there.
Oh my God.
I don't know if we have a lot of Cincinnati viewers or Bearcat fans in general that listen to this show, but my experience was rough. They were extremely rude. They're just rude general people, just all around.
Really?
It wasn't a nice experience at all. I was sitting in section 203. The stadium's nice. It's a real nice venue, Fifth Third Arena. Everything is, right there. It's compact. Everything's a little digitalized. It's not, no actual cloth banners and all this stuff. It's a nice arena, but the people, not great. Real in your face, sarcastic. But you expect that when you're battling back and forth, but no hospitality at all in the city. Cincinnati stinks. I hate it. Their food sucks. And that game was just bad all around. The refs were bad. K-State was bad. Cincinnati, you guys stink too. I hate you. But like I said, Tyler Perry, absolute dimer. And I was ready to get my comeuppance on a lot of those Cincinnati fans that were sitting in section 203, row 11, and row 13. If you're season ticket holders, you know who you are, and I don't like you. So if I find out who you are, and we play again, especially in football, because we do play you in football, I will let you know about it. So not great. But I was ready when Tyler Perry.
Perfect timing for this comment.
Yeah, let's get into it. But yeah, I'm ready for football season. I'm ready. This season's over. It's dead. We buried it.
Yeah, and the Batcats lost yesterday 15-5 to Tennessee. So I don't know how excited I am about the Batcats at this point.
They just lost to Clemson today, so
Oh, great. Just fantastic.
I think they lost 8-3.
Oh, great stuff. Great stuff. Well, at least we have women's hoops to worry about. But they're cardiac cats right now too. I'm thinking. So we talked about the portal. We talked about, just the future of the program. I guess which player or players are you most hopeful for on the men's side moving forward?
I think Day-Day Ames is that guy. I think him and David Castillo can be a real dynamic duo. I mean, they're not very big, but Day-Day Ames has that ability that Marquise Noel had last year where he can get to the paint. Now he just has to have the experience of having a plan of what he's going to do when he gets there. Is it going to be, I'm going to dribble left because I got a strong left hand, bounce pass to the right? All these things you're going to get with experience. He started to show a little bit of a jumper. I liked it from 3 a little bit. His shot's a little flat, but if he gets a little bit of arch on that shot, he could be a real troublemaker from downtown too. So I'm super excited for Day-Day. Chicago nasty guard playing all 4 years because he's not an NBA guy right now. If you get him for all 4 years, it could be a truth. But I want to ask a question after you guys answer this question too.
I was going to say Cam, because I do believe next season he's going to be looked at as the guy.
But is that good though? Because when you talked about regression, I think that's who you were talking about.
Second leading scorer.
I understand. So I think some of the stats are a little misleading because of the volume. I mean, he played so much and compared to last season. And so ultimately from the law of averages, it's going to look like, and also our offense was kind of shitty this year. So
the efficiency is really his big critique.
Correct. He's going to have to improve it almost, I don't know if basketball IQ is like a fair word to say there. I don't know. But just like outside of the shooting piece, he is going to have to really grasp the ball, like holding on to the basketball and being smart with the dribble. And those are the things that going into your senior season, it's going to be imperative that you improve in that regard, because the first part of the season, he looked like a guy that, I mean, quite frankly, had the potential to be the lead, maybe the star of this team. And it definitely seems like he lost some confidence in the back half of Big 12 play. He wasn't making shots. He was in a funk. He wasn't being smart with the basketball. He's still a good defender. I mean, he's still one of the best defenders on the team, I feel. So he's going to be somebody that in the offseason, I'm sure he understands how he needs to develop if he wants to be a lead guy for this team and a lead guy in the Big 12. But it's going to take a little bit from him to kind of get there.
I so badly want to say Caleb Rich. Just because that dude, I mean, I just get so excited watching him play basketball.
There's no reason, absolutely no reason for what we saw from KJ Adams freshman year. We can't see a progression similar to what Buddy Rich can do.
That's a good comp.
He cannot shoot. Absolutely cannot shoot right now. But if we get him he can dunk, and if we can get him to have somewhat of a handle where they have to press out on him for that floater that KJ has, he's going to be a valuable asset, a lob threat, all those things. But it's going to be a lot of development with that kid. It's going to take a lot.
I just think of this season, like he would be playing at the 4 and he would be replacing David Gasson on the floor. And David Gasson, you replace the energy with a guy who has the potential to bring energy, but he just hasn't shown any flashes on the offensive side unless he gets a lob thrown to him. And from a rebound perspective, he's still learning how to box out and block out against Big 12 level guys at the floor. So he has the potential. That's, like I said earlier, I think from an offensive perspective, he has to develop what his niche is going to be for the team. I mean, for KJ Adams, KJ Adams has that athleticism, and there are some comparisons that you can make watching their game. But Buddy Rich isn't there on the offensive side yet. And so I hope he does develop into a really good player, or a player that has an important role on this team instead of plays 5 minutes every sixth game.
My thing with players like Buddy Rich, because he has uber talent, he is an uber athlete. You have to knock that out of him, that he is, you have to knock it out of him. This is just basketball in general. For all of time, it's been like this. You have to knock it out of him that he is the best player on the court, because he's not anymore. In East St. Louis, he was jumping over everybody. But you can't do that anymore. You have to learn technique. You have to learn to hustle. You have to learn to run the floor, because that's what KJ Adams does. There's not too many sets that are run for KJ Adams outside of sitting in the paint for 12 seconds and the ref's not calling it and they just throw it over the top. So if that's not run for KJ Adams, it is absolute hustle plays. And if Buddy Rich can get that superstar knocked out of him and tell him that you are going to be a absolute fourth leading scorer on a team, and that is an absolute valuable necessity that you can provide, the sky's the limit for him, because those players are what win you championships. What was the guy from Baylor? What was it? Vidal?
Oh yeah.
Vital.
Mark, yeah.
Vital. I mean, he had no athleticism. Zero. I don't think he used his left hand at all. He's kind of like a Boris Diaw, where you're very limited. But if you have the hustle and you have the drive and you know your role, those guys win you ships. And Buddy Rich, if he can learn to do that, my God, he has the athleticism. If he could just have the mindset, I like that, Bob. I love that pick, because those are the guys that win you ships.
For sure. And I think it's they did a great job identifying his talent in high school.
Yeah.
They just need to develop the areas to Matt's point and your point. Like if he has an offensive game that's not just the highest percentage shot on the court, which is dunking it, then he can be a very, very dangerous asset, I think, for this team. My last question on this before we close out the men's hoops season, and then we'll talk women's hoops and Big 12 tournament food items, but we may do that in a separate recording. But coaching wise, what are you looking to hear Coach Tang talk about as lessons learned from this season? Because last night we saw a lot of, I feel like the staff had a good game plan, and I feel like we prepared well for this game, but there wasn't effort. There wasn't this, there wasn't that. It came across as kind of trying to throw the players under the bus a little bit, and it had that vibe. Whether that was his intent or not, that's how it came across to me, at least listening to what he said. And I don't love the lack of accountability there, but that's just how it came across to me.
It was too late.
Yeah. Yeah. Where was that 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago?
It's too late. I mean, second to last game in regular season, it's too late. There were plenty of games this season. I mean, the Oklahoma game for one, the effort was not there. And from an accountability perspective, the coaching staff took the accountability. And I don't necessarily look at that as a negative sometimes. I mean, the coaching staff in general brings players in, and it's their responsibility to put together a game plan and prepare the players for the opponent that they're going up against. And if you don't meet that expectation, that's fine. But there are games this season where the effort is just not there, especially you're in January, where you could try and revitalize that effort out of those players and maybe saying something to be a little bit more accountable is now I can't say anything negative anymore. So I just felt that comment was too late. I don't have a problem with it. The effort was not there. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. The effort was not there. So I don't know.
Absolutely. You're 100% correct. He waited entirely way too long to even, he had so many opportunities to, chastise his players, get some momentum, fire his group up. He babied them from the very beginning. The whole Tyler Perry's the best shooter, and Tyler Perry kind of leaned into that, where he's like, it's not really working. I see the comments about me and all that jive. But he was never really harsh on him. He was never really harsh on the boys. And sometimes these are adults. Let's be honest. In some aspects, they're adults, especially the main guys. You have to get on them sometimes, and he waited way too long. Whether it's about accountability, I don't think that was going to be my question. Where are we at with Tang? I think he's the guy, obviously. And I don't think he's a hot seat in any way, but what is the expectation for the boy? Because, missing the tournament is kind of what got Bruce out of here. So
the other thing that I would just real quick, sorry you said that. This is probably a season that maybe he needed to. You need some adversity, especially as you're growing into the profession of being a head coach at a major university, in a program that he's trying to aspire to do great things. And I'm sure on his perspective, there are points in this season where he wished he could have done something better or tried something new. And this, I believe that this season's only going to help him in that regard of improving himself as a head coach. The staff, is taking these lumps and working for 2024, 2025 and going head first. So.
Yeah, I think honestly, my biggest concern is for a long time, people kind of thought of Scott Drew as like a roll the ball out there type of coach. And there wasn't a whole lot of coaching happening necessarily. And my concern after this season is that last season he relied a lot on the talent of Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel. And I wasn't sure after watching this season, I'm not sure now how much of that was the result of Coach Tang and just bringing the right talent in at the right time and retaining the right talent. And then this season, oh shit, you're struck with adversity. You lose the player that you built the entire team around, and then the team didn't really seem to make a ton of progress throughout the season. That would be the one, if I have like an angel on my shoulder, it's Coach Tang went to an Elite Eight. He had 19 years with Scott Drew. He's done a great job recruiting. And if I've got just the tiny little devil on my shoulder, he might be a roll the ball out there coach. We don't know if there's a whole lot else beyond that. He's relying too much on the talent that he's bringing together and not so much on developing it. That would be my only concern. And it's a slight concern, but it's not like a major concern yet. Let's see what he can do in the portal this offseason. Let's see what he can do with the talent on the court next year. And bringing in a guy like David Castillo, I'm jury's out, obviously. I'm not by any means drawing that conclusion. It's just like there's a little voice in my head that keeps telling me, like, should we be concerned about this? I don't really know. But yeah, I'm going to close it with that. Give me your final thoughts, and then we're going to get out of here, and then we're going to record a separate episode.
I'm sad that it came to this. I wish I had so much fun with basketball last year. We had as a group, we just enjoyed it so much. The run was fun. To know that we don't get that this year is stinky.
It's okay. we went on Saturday and we win 3 games in the Big 12 tournament. And no, I'm kidding. That's no fucking way that's happening, guys.
Stop.
Dude, don't get me. I mean, I will believe again. I got crazy faith.
I'm driving up for that game on Saturday, and Lord knows I'm gonna get punished for that with a lost Iowa State.
If we win, though, I'm gonna be talking a lot of stuff in the group message, because then we'll finally get the seeding in, and we'll know exactly who we're gonna be playing. I think we'll be able to figure it out before then anyway. But Matt's a genius with those brackets and all that stuff and the seeding.
Just say Matt's a genius and out.
Cut.
And on that note, for all of us here at Cocaine Willie, thank you for listening to the show on your podcast feeds or watching us on YouTube. Watching us live, this is the first time we've done a live show since the Iowa State watch along where we got shadow banned, but that's okay. Do us a favor. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating and follow the show. And if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Even if you're not a K-State fan, you can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram, or follow us individually. I'm at Bob Trollsby. Fireball Matt is at Matt Marchesini, and Chef is at Chef Andre Napier. Chef,
man, for the final time for basketball season, cocaine's a hell of a drug, baby.
For the men's basketball season specifically, but we are all coke and no joke. Wildcat country. Let's ride.